Good evening, class. My name is Aaron Rivero. I'll be going over my topic, which is the risk associated with cryptocurrency and the impact on technology. We'll be going over some basic stuff like what is a cryptocurrency, how does it work, and some of the impacts involved. So starting off with what is a cryptocurrency? Basically, a cryptocurrency is a medium of exchange, just like a normal currency such as the Indian rupee or the US dollar, but it's designed to be conducted digitally through a process known as cryptography. Now, a way I like to look at it is pretty much cryptocurrency is electricity converted into lines of code with monetary values. What does that mean? That pretty much means that cryptocurrency is executed through a blockchain or a node, and that's why they refer to a line of code. It has a monetary value. That's why people exchange it between peers. This technology uses encryption to regulate the generation of units, and this verifies the transfer of funds. Another important point is that it's decentralized and is not regulated by a central bank. As we all know, Bitcoin is probably it is the largest cryptocurrency today and is the first cryptocurrency introduced in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto. So how does it work? I have a graph here showing demonstrating how it works. It looks more complex than what it is, but the basic principle is that you have somebody, say counterparty A, and they're going to request a transaction. Now, when they request a transaction, what it's going to do is, first of all, you need a platform to conduct a transaction. As we all know, there's Coinbase, there's Kraken, and these platforms are used to execute these transactions from peer to peer, which when counterparty A conducts a transaction or requests a transaction, it goes into the network or the cloud, as they call it. It's also called nodes. Now, in these nodes, they're going to search for validation of that transaction. And this is done through the program's algorithm. Once that validation is verified, it's going to create a contract that's going to record the information and it's going to verify the transaction. Now, once the transaction is verified, it's going to create a new block and it's overridden to the existing blockchain, which is where blockchain comes into play. Now, once that is complete, the process is unreversible and it cannot be altered. That's essentially when the transaction is complete. So let's talk about what is a blockchain quickly. Now, a blockchain is a decentralized ledger of all transactions on a peer-to-peer network. Through the blockchain, you can confirm the transaction without needing for a third party, as it is decentralized. This is done through a public ledger, and it's useful because you can use it in applications to transfer of funds, settling trades, exchanging assets, identification, security, voting, etc. What are some of the risks associated with cryptocurrency technology? Well, the biggest risk is that it's developed and ran without governmental or corporate oversight. So what does that mean? Essentially, cryptocurrency right now, transactions with cryptocurrency is unregulated, which is why they're conducted through a platform. Because originally the idea behind using cryptocurrency is to conduct a transaction anonymously and efficiently without the need of approval, of getting approval from a bank. Now, the issue here is you run into AML issues, anti-money laundering issues, and regulation issues, because since it's not regulated or it hasn't been defined 100% how it's going to be regulated, you have to do the transaction through a platform, and then from that platform, you're gonna exchange the funds to your bank account directly, or vice versa. Another risk is that, or another downside slash risk is that it's irreversible. Once the transaction is encrypted into the blockchain, you cannot alter a transaction unless you do what is called a hard fork. Now, a hard fork is not something that is done in common because this is pretty much a consensus that the community comes up with, and it resets all the nodes and all the blockchains to reverse the transactions. Another risk is that every cryptocurrency transaction, is tied to a private key. So what happens is if you lose or misplace your private key, you no longer have access to those funds, which is why approximately 2.8 to 3.8 million bitcoins are lost or have been lost since inception and are no longer in circulation. And then you have the unregulated platforms holding the owner's private keys, which is, as we talked earlier, it's an unregulated system, so it's decentralized. And lastly, you have the barriers to growth, which is limited by the block size. only a few thousand transactions can fit on a block, so it causes a backlog over time, and it slows down the process. So that's pretty much the essence of the risks associated with cryptocurrency.